Welcome, everyone, to the Michigan Association of Secondary School Principals podcast series, featuring great discussions, insight, and resources on all things related to education and administration. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Season 6 of the MASSP podcast. My name is Ryan Casey, and today I am joined by my good friend and colleague, Tammy Jackson of MASSP. Tammy, how you doing?
I'm great, Ryan. It's great to be back with you.
So, Tammy, if you could, real quick, could you just talk a little bit about what you do at MASSP and a little bit of your background, because that's going to really help frame how we're talking about leadership or new leadership in a pandemic.
Sure, Ryan. I'd be happy to do that. So I joined MASSP just 5 years ago, this month, actually, after a long career in administration in Northern Michigan. And my job has sort of revolved into several different things with the association. Primarily, I manage the Path to Leadership program, which is the pathway to earn the administrative certificate through an alternative route. And I manage that program and have been part of that program since it began 9 years ago. In addition to that, I also work with new principals. I run the New Principal Connect webinar series, and I also work with aspiring principals. This year, we've added a series called Strengthen Your Practice, which is for those who have been through the aspiring or the new principals webinars and want to just continue to work and network with other principals across the state. And I do a little bit of training here or there for MASSP as well.
Very cool. And prior to being at MASSP, can you just talk about your principalship or administrative experience?
Sure. I was at the same school district for almost 32 years. 29 of those years were an administrator. Started out as an AD assistant principal, and then I ended my career with 18 years being in the role of the principal.
Awesome. So for people listening, that is why Tammy is the go-to person for us, talking to aspiring administrators, new administrators, and those that really just are looking to grow in terms of leadership and their skill set. So and that's why Tammy is with us today, because we are talking about what does leadership look like now in our state after I would like to say we're on the back end of the pandemic, but you just never really know. So Tammy, you work with all of these educators and schools from across the state. How is your approach changing to how you are describing leadership? How are you teaching leadership, or what people need to learn in order to be effective leaders?
Well, Ryan, as you know, that leadership is leadership, and it honestly doesn't matter if you're a leader in an educational setting or a leader in a corporate setting. Leadership is leadership. And part of leadership is being able to change with the environment. And that is what administrators in the state of Michigan have had to do. All educators, but talking about administration, we've had to be willing to make the changes that have to be made. So some of our focus has changed in leadership. And I would say the main focus change has been on students' mental and emotional health. We know that this pandemic has been the most difficult on our students. And as a result, we have had to make the changes necessary to give them the support that they need. We've also had to ensure that teachers are prepared to support students. And so that means our teachers have needed support in order to be prepared to do their best that they can for their students. We've actually just had to give administrators permission to narrow the curriculum focus to the most essential standards so that they can find the time in the day to meet those needs of students. Our students will not achieve at the highest level if their very basic needs are not being met. So all the great curriculum in the world won't work if your students aren't there and they don't feel safe to participate. We've also had to focus on the best practices in the pedagogy of remote teaching. It's a different bird when we are talking about teaching online. You can't just take what you were doing in the classroom and just record yourself on a camera and expect to have the same outcome. And so there's had to have been a lot of work done on how to better prepare our educators to teach remotely. And then, of course, for our administrators themselves, we've had to focus on how to practice a healthy work-life balance, because as we as administrators are supporting all those around us, we have to take care of ourselves, because as you know, you can't pour from an empty pot. And if you're not filling your own bucket, you're not going to be prepared to be supportive to all those others.
I almost wonder in a weird way from the pandemic, as you mentioned, really focusing on maybe some essential things that a building needs or a staff needs. I wonder if the pandemic has almost allowed us to not try and just throw a million things at a wall to see what sticks, or try to find the next best thing. But it really allowed administrators and school personnel to focus on just one, two things that they truly know their teachers or their students need. And maybe they'll find some success in that, even though we're in the middle of still a pretty challenging situation.
For sure, the schools that are doing the best are those who have been willing to get rid of things they've always done and add things that now need to be added. And it's almost like a reset in a way. And those districts that will succeed in the long run are the ones who won't just pick up everything they let go and make things the way they were prior to the pandemic.
That's a great point. So looking at teachers who are considering making the jump into a leadership position, what are you seeing right now? Are people still willing to sign up for this crazy job? And why or why not do you think that is? And maybe even if you could share some of their reasoning behind those decisions.
Well, I can only speak of the traffic that we've had through our certification program and Path to Leadership. And I can tell you immediately following last March, when the onset of the pandemic happened, or March a year ago, we took an initial hit in the numbers in the program. Our numbers dropped slightly for about one, maybe two cohorts. And then they picked up, and right now the enrollment is higher than it's ever been in the 9 years of the existence of the program. And I think that's because the teachers realize the importance of solid leadership, and they know that there's a shortage of qualified principals. And if they don't work toward being leaders themselves, that pool of people is going to dry up. And they've really recognized that the importance that leadership has played to their role as a teacher, for example, and they just want to be that for other people. And so I would say that, again, the pandemic has actually sparked more interest in the role of an administrator.
That's awesome. I kind of have always wondered, especially going through, the last year and a half or so, how many people want to become a building leader because they had that amazing person that built them up and built others up and maybe gave them opportunities to do so, versus who did not enjoy the experience they got from the leader in their building and think that, I'm going to do this because I can do a better job at this. I have what it takes, and I want to be that person for maybe the complete opposite set of reasons,
Yeah, I've actually thought about that before. And I guess my best estimate would be that 75% of the people that join the Path to Leadership program are joining because they have been inspired by a leader, and they've been inspired to do as well as the leader that they worked under. But I would say that there's 25% of the people who just haven't been satisfied with the leadership they've worked under, and they want to become a better leader. They want to become the leader that they needed.
So what is your best go-to advice for new administrators? So knowing you work with new principals, and then maybe the same for the last group we just mentioned, the teacher leaders that are looking to become building administrators.
Well, first, I would say that you have to make sure you're pursuing the path for the right reason. Sometimes we have teachers who get toward the end of their career and they realize in order to up their retirement, they need to make more money. And knowing that administrators make more money, they think it's the path to go in. And that couldn't be the worst reason to become an administrator, because I promise you, if you are a tenured teacher, somebody who's been in the profession for 15 or more years already, you are making more per hour than the administrator makes.
Yes.
Now, certainly your paycheck is smaller, but I can tell you your responsibilities are smaller too. So I think you have to go into this position with your eyes wide open to the enormous responsibility and the amount of time that is invested in the position. Realizing that it is the most difficult job that you probably will ever have, but in my view, it is the most honorable position that you could hold as well. You will expand your influence tenfold. And I guess the other advice I would give is to begin immediately building a professional network. The role of a building administrator is a difficult one. And if you do it alone without any support, you're going to just die in that position. It's just too difficult. You have to seek your own professional development and your own support system. In many of our schools in the state, there's only one administrator in every building. There's nobody to collaborate with.
Mm-hmm.
And so you've got to build that network of people around you in order to get that collaboration.
I can say from my own experience, sick of being stuck and having steps frozen and dealing with that issue that we had for quite a few years, that I jumped in thinking that was not the only reason why I wanted to become an administrator, but it was definitely up there. So your comment about the your hourly rate once you figure in the hours, that's why I had to laugh, because that is so true. Similar, I would say, to those who coach and extracurricular opportunities when you're trying to factor and pay for that stuff. It just put in a lot of time. So that is great advice. So what opportunities do we then have for those that are interested in administration or that are new to the leadership role? You talked about a little bit about at the beginning here, Tammy. Do we have anything that's coming up soon here through MASSP?
Yeah, we have 3 different opportunities that sort of focus in those areas. We have the New Principal Connect, which is a series of 6 one-hour webinars that focus on the most important aspects of leadership. That series actually kicks off on September 28th with an in-person session from 10 to 2 in Lansing. It is a great way to kick off that program. I worked with a group of new principals last year. I had up to over 100 principals in some of the sessions, and people really enjoyed the sessions, but would have loved to have been able to meet in person some of the people that were attending those sessions. So that New Principal Connect is just priceless for those people who are within the first 1 to 3 years of being a principal. We also have the Aspiring Principal webinar. So for those individuals who are considering going into administration, this is a 3-series webinar, and it's followed by a in-person workshop. And that workshop actually prepares you to begin applying for positions. So there's a lot to do with applications and interviewing questions and being prepared for that. And then finally, we've added this year the Strengthen Your Practice webinar series. And that's for those individuals who are beyond 3 years or who already went through the New Principal Connect and want to just be part of a network and continue to grow as a leader. This came out of really the request of those who went through the New Principal Connect last year that said, is there a way that we could continue this kind of learning and collaboration? So in this 5-session virtual training, or really not training, but time together, the people who attend the sessions will actually help build the agenda. So we'll be working on things that are currently happening in schools, and we'll be adding those things to the agenda and working on those things in those sessions. And so that's the 3rd formal opportunity for new or aspiring or practicing principals.
As you can see, we like to keep Tammy busy here. So she's got those. And I think there's a classroom management session she does. Anytime we have conferences going on, usually Tammy's there doing a breakout. And as you were listening, I think it's pretty evident why we have Tammy working with so many educational leaders from across the state. So I appreciate your time, Tammy. Do you want to just real quick share what is the best way for people to get a hold of you if they have any questions about any of these upcoming sessions, or maybe they just want to pick your brain about a certain topic?
Sure, Ryan. I'll be happy to tell you my email address, which is tammy@michiganprincipals.org. You can also find me on the MASSP website, and I'll be happy to give you my super secret personal direct line that is not very super secret, but is direct, and that is 231-357-1748. Call me anytime you have any questions about any of these opportunities, or anytime you just want to have someone to talk to about maybe something going on in your little world.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tammy. So make sure you reach out to her or you check out any of those upcoming events. You can find those by going to massp.com/events. They are all listed with all the days, times, and on how to get registered for those events. So thank you so much for listening, everybody. Remember, you can access this podcast and others by going to massp.com/podcast or wherever you listen to podcasts, including the Apple Podcast Store and on Libsyn. Thank you for listening, everybody. Have a great day.